This is Lutin. Alien Isolation seeks to reclaim the lost franchise that is a mirage in a desert of failed Alien games. But does it succeed? Let's find out. Now, first of all, I don't want this to be a direct response to IGN's review, but I do want to reference first that I think it was overly harsh in its final conclusion, almost mechanical in its resolve, and I'll explain to you why I think that is. Now, Alien Isolation has created a highly authentic 1970s sci-fi environment with a high level of attention to detail. This is further then embellished by its lighting, smoke, steam, and its unrelenting sound effects. In fact, as you'll find out later in the game, the sound effects are not just there to create a believable environment, they've been closely crafted to resemble elements of the alien's own sounds. This really heightens your confusion at times as you snap around thinking the alien is nearby, when in fact it was just a pipe or a door opening. The narrative in Alien Isolation quickly establishes a believable rationale for Ripley's daughter Amanda, and we are soon on our way to the Sevastopol. The establishing scenes in the game surpass anything you've seen in a recent Alien game, although if you're dedicated to the tenets of science fiction, it'll be fairly familiar stuff to you. Finding yourself alone on the Sevastopol, you quickly fall into the true horror of the game: solitude. Alien Isolation does bleed you slowly into the action though. The first hour really is a visually rich tutorial in many ways, but simultaneously establishing context and scenario. It prepares you well for the main course, which is of course the alien itself. As you try to find your way to escape the Sevastopol, whilst also following your own search for information about her mother, Amanda has to complete various side quests, not unlike any other survival horror title, all under the constant pressure of alien attack or being battered into a console by a synthetic working Joe. The synthetics in the game I find to be just as fearful as the alien, but for different reasons. Yes, they're slow and they can be hidden from, usually by a short run and climbing into a vent, but if they catch you, or worse off, if they cut off an escape route for you, you find yourself in a near unescapable conclusion: a slow, horrific bludgeoning to death. The puzzle mechanics of the game are simple but carried out contextually well. The most obvious factor in this is that you have to perform puzzle operations while live in the game. So you can't sit back, relax and complete the mini hacks at your leisure, you need to do them as fast as possible. And you will, at least on one occasion, find the alien was a little closer than you anticipated and find your face on the floor as you try to unlock a door. A great side note while we're talking about in-game tech interactions that I discovered though was that previously to this review I had played only using a gamepad. Now on the PC, when interacting with monitors or doors, most PC games enable you to use the mouse as your primary tool of interaction. This was not the case with Alien Isolation, and while at first this might seem irritating, it actually connects beautifully with their focus on mechanical lo-fi tech, and I came to find it a great way to add a little bit of extra immersion using just the keyboard. So very briefly, on PC versus console, the versions of this game, having played both, there's very little difference in visual quality or the gameplay itself. The only thing to note is that with the console versions, when you peek, it's much smoother thanks to the analog sticks, whereas on PC, it's all or nothing with that keyboard lean. So the length of the game, let's get down to it. Is this a long game? Yes, it is. Does that make it a miserable grind, as IGN kind of suggested in their review? Personally, I disagree, and I quite strongly disagree, and here's why. If this game had been made too short, people would have been crying out, $50 for 6 hours, what the fuck is that? So seeing as this game is single player only, it had to have enough of a game to really dig into. Now, given the fact they wanted to keep the story and situation believable, I think they did a great job of managing your objectives versus the context of your situation. Also, I feel like Alien Isolation is a nod towards some older school games. Think backtracking, think Resident Evil, Haunting Ground, even giants of narrative like Myst and Riven. I think this was a brave decision in an age and market of instant gratification and easy mode. This game is not handed to you on a silver platter, you have to struggle and creep and hide and brave your way through. I always personally feel that you have to give a part of yourself to a game's single player narrative if you truly want to get the maximum enjoyment from it. I advise you to do that with this game, and when it comes to difficulty, just use your own judgment. If you are a survival horror veteran or you want a real challenge, then hit that hard mode. If you're a decent gamer but just want to stack your own deck a little, then go for medium. And if you think you won't complete it at all, then just go on easy mode. But make no mistake, there is actually very little difference between the difficulty levels, so don't expect a free pass. You're still going to die horribly, and that shouldn't really sort of emphasize your overall feeling about the game. Now, I don't like to rate games numerically because I feel this is a very cold way to rate a game, so I'm going to simply describe my experience. The initial beauty of the game is appreciated in the first hours of the game, and I love that it doesn't throw down the gauntlet as soon as you're awake. This gives you time to inspect, discover, and enjoy the world around you, visibly and audibly. When you move into the middle stages of the game, you'll no longer see anything around you as lush environments. It becomes a place to hide, a place to survive, a box to help you. The sounds melt away from immersive devices as your hearing becomes pin sharp, listening to every movement, sound and tone of not just the alien, but your other threats as well. Endgame with Alien Isolation sees you culminate your knowledge and experiences together to the ultimate challenges and some unforgiving situations for sure. As to the end itself, well, it's as satisfying as you take it to be. I feel what it really comes down to is, are you a glass half full or half empty kind of person? The onus is on you. Does Alien Isolation represent a giant leap forward in alien experiences? Yes, it does. Is the length of the game a negative factor? That's plausible, but based on the user experience yourself. Does the difficulty negatively affect the experience? Well, I would say the difficulty is the experience. Alien Isolation does not fear offending the player by insulting their intelligence or their appetite for a challenge. I've seen a trend in games starting to actually challenge the player more, like the days of old, and this is a good thing. Does the narrative provide a good context and story? Surprisingly, yes. I usually find myself cringing and hiding from game narratives, but Alien Isolation I found to be a believable backdrop to a terrifying ordeal. Now, longevity, would I play the game through again? Like most survival horror games, it's not the type of thing you'll instantly play through straight as you finish it. However, there is a nice caveat to this in the survivor mode, and again, I just want to say, IGN kind of dismissed this out of hand, but actually what the survivor mode does is it allows you a short burst of the same feeling you would have in the single player if you just want to kill an hour. You don't want to sort of get stuck into that. The main campaign, I believe, would you come back to that when you want a truly chilling horror experience. However, on a replay, that first hour, it could feel frustrating and a bit drawn out on a second play because, as I say, it's kind of like an extended narrative tutorial and it could be a bit frustrating trying to rush through that first section. So my final thought. Alien Isolation to me represents what I said to a friend about 10 years ago. Wouldn't it be amazing if someone could make a true Alien game from the first film? I remember us wondering at the time how the hell you would do that. Well, Creative Assembly have done just this. Yes, there are some pros and cons to the game, but for God's sake, in today's world of gaming, when don't you have that? This game is a true horror experience, and I do not agree that the game's fear is diluted by its length. I don't know honestly how anyone could claim not to be terrified of that creature, no matter what stage you're at. Also, as much as this game is a force of its own, it also definitely seeks to replicate and allow you to live out moments from the movie, and that in itself is not a bad thing. If you're looking for some perfectly executed nostalgia combined with a lengthy, cold sweat experience, then try out Alien Isolation. It's simply just not one to miss. And just remember that in Sevastopol, no one can hear you scream. Apart from maybe the survivors and droids and the creature that stalks you.